I'm here with BJ Swingle. We met through Tim Kaufman, and she's got a great story, lost 45 pounds. So, BJ, maybe we could just start out with where you're from and a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so hi, I'm BJ Swingle, and I live in, I say southern New Jersey, but I think it's more central New Jersey outside of Philadelphia. I'm married with my husband, and we have a 7-year-old son, and we have a little dachshund dog, Sissy.
I think I saw on your blog that you said you've lost 40 to 60 pounds 7 times.
Yeah.
So, take me all the way back to the beginning. Were you a bigger kid growing up? Where did that weight kind of come on for you in life?
So I am 100% Italian. My parents are from New York. I think I'm about third generation born in here in the United States. And but my parents raised me to be totally Americanized. I know nothing about talking Italian. My mom was an amazing cook. She made all types of cultures of food, and we ate everything. She made everything from like German to Chinese. So I was raised with loving food because it was just something my mom was passionate about making. And we always had food in our house. And everyone pretty much in my family is on the large size, all the way to my cousins. So everything was always focused around food. And yeah, I realized I was overweight um, when I was probably in sixth grade when we had gym class and we had to weigh in. And my maiden name, Aberscotty, it was an A, so I weighed first. And I sat and watched everybody. I sat right next to the scale, so I got to watch everybody else get weighed. And I realized that I was in the hundreds, and everybody else was kind of like in the double digits. Maybe I don't remember the numbers exactly. I just remember that being an aha moment. But I just thought, well, we were just large. Everybody is large in my family.
And then when was the first time that you thought, I need to do something about this, or I need to try to do something about this? Because I know you said, as I mentioned, it sounds like this has kind of been a lifelong journey for you.
Absolutely. So my senior year of high school, I had a crush on a boy, and I walked past him, and I heard him say to another boy across the hallway, the aisle, she's too fat. And I sat down, and I just felt my whole body, just my whole face, everything just burn. And I thought, oh, wow. So I guess I went home and talked to my mom about it, because the next thing I remember now is I went on a diet that was pretty much Weight Watchers, but it was a program that's no longer around called Lean Line. And I went on that program. My mom made all my food for me. I didn't have to think about what I ate. And I ate whatever she gave me. And I remember one particular time I was really hungry. And I was like, Mom, I'm hungry. And she's like, eat an apple. And I said, but I want food. I look back now and I'm like, okay, that was food. But I guess I was, obviously craving carbs or pasta or something. But so I lost the weight then, my senior year of high school. And I went into college looking good. And but then you go to college and I lived at home my first 2 years of college, so again I was fine with the food, but it crept up because you're walking around campus. And so, and then I think when I went away to college, I moved down to Savannah, Georgia, and I was in culture shock down there, and I was learning all different types of different foods they had down there. So yeah, I gained the weight back in college like everybody else, I think most people do.
How long was it that you did those 6 or 7 times of losing, 40 to 60 pounds?
There was always changes in my life, and so I wasn't I didn't have a steady life until I met my husband in my late 30s. So in my 20s, I lived in 10 to 11 different places. I moved around a lot, and I wasn't in a steady relationship. I was always in and out of relationships. So when my weight always fluctuated, what was going on with my life, and I was always working 1 or 2 jobs. I never had a lot of downtime to take care of myself, to exercise, prepare or even learn about food. So In my 20s, counting college, when I gained that weight, and then I had to lose it, and then in my mid-20s and then my late 20s. But those times when I lost the weight, I starved myself because I didn't learn how to eat when my mom made me the food. I mean, she was doing it from her heart, but unfortunately, she should have taught me how to, what I was eating. And then in my late 20s, Fen-Phin was a diet pill that was around, and that was a very dangerous drug, and I did take that, and I only did that probably for about a year, but that helped me lose the weight. But then when I stopped taking it, the weight came back. And then in my early 30s again, and then my mom died. My mom was sick. My mom was very overweight my whole life, and she was a stress eater, and I think I definitely learned to be a stress eater by watching her. And she had food hidden in the house, and I learned to hide food in the house as well. And when I was 29 years old, my mom, she had diabetes most of my 20s, and when I was 29, her kidneys had failed, and she went on dialysis. And at the time, I was living down in Texas, and she was in Florida, and I couldn't get to her easily. But she kept telling me on the phone that she was fine. But what happened with the infection was it got too big for her, and they were going to try to surgically remove it. And the day that they were going to do that, her blood pressure was too low, and she had a stroke. So, and she ultimately ended up dying unexpectedly. But I was in shock because she kept telling me she was fine, and at 29 years old, I should have known better. But I was kind of, I don't know, I just wasn't grown up. I wasn't mature at 29. And she died unexpectedly, and that was a shock to me. It was a big shock. Yeah, and then in my 30s again, and then I was in some, bad relationship at the time that was someone who needed me, and I kept taking care of him, and I wasn't taking care of myself. And then finally I woke up one day and said, this is not the life my mom wanted me to live. And so I ended up ending that and then starting to take care of myself. And I went on Weight Watchers again, and then lost the weight. And got into cycling. And I was doing great with that. And I met my husband, David, through that. And David has been the best, guy I've met in my life. And I was 36 at the time. So finally things started to fall into place for me. But we had our first baby. I had my first baby, my son, at 39. And that was a lot on my body physically and mentally. And so we had him, and then shortly after we had him, my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and we got pregnant again, which was great because we wanted to have 2 kids close in age, and with my age, we needed to do that. So my dad got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Shortly after that, then we ended up having a miscarriage at 12 weeks, which when you're that far along, I had to have the surgery. The D&E. So, and then my aunt, who I was close with, who was my mom's sister, she died unexpectedly the day before Thanksgiving. Oddly enough, she just had a stroke, and was never responsive after that. And so then, I thought the miscarriage was probably good timing. Now I needed to focus on my father, and he suffered a very long, painful battle with the pancreatic cancer, and we had him home at his house with my stepmom. My father had remarried after my mom had passed, and she took great care of him, and we had him at home the whole process. So anyway, didn't take care of myself again, and I've gained all the weight. And here I met my husband David when I was at my lowest weight, and now I was going through all this, and now I was at my highest weight, and he never once mentioned it or said anything. He always loved me, and he always treated me as if I was my, lowest weight. And so, but it was all about me and how I felt about myself. And one of the things that resonated through me when my father was trying to fight the cancer is he read about vegetables and how he was eating asparagus puree because he thought that could beat the cancer. I mean, unfortunately, he had pancreatic cancer, and it was all over, so it wasn't going to help him at that point, but that always stood out in my head.
And looking back, because obviously I want to get to kind of where that brought you to, but were there any triggers or both for either weight loss or weight gain that looking back that kind of, obviously it wasn't the same situation over and over again, but were there certain things that you can see that that kind of are reminiscent of each other that happened during each of those times that you gained or lost the weight, or is it all really just completely separate events? Was it stress related, you think? Was it, just the focus on others? Like what do you look at? Just I know it's a similar story for a lot of people, that it's kind of a yo-yo effect, and so I just wonder if there's something at the top or the bottom of that yo-yo that's kind of a constant.
Well, well, now that I'm in, so I've lost the weight just now recently through Chef AJ, and Chef AJ's program. She doesn't just talk about the food; she talks about the whole mental. And I've learned a lot this past year, especially with her. But I've been following her for 4 years. But this past year, I've learned so much mentally, and I think a lot of it is I've learned that I'm a people pleaser. I want people to be happy. I take care of other people before I had taken care of myself. And people pleasers are always, sacrificing themselves. So that's how it could turn into. So here I was, always trying to I think a lot of it comes back down to that senior year of high school when that boy said I was fat. And I think I was a little bit mortified. I want people to accept me. I want to be able to make people happy. So it's a constant battle in my head. And I think I think because my mom was such a great cook, I love cooking. And I think my mom showed us her love through her cooking. So I was going to show people love through their, my cooking. So I just never, to me, I can't just cook and give it to somebody. I have to cook and I eat it too. And I think it's because of stress. So yeah, I think all of that, and I listened to Susan, what was her name? Wynick. I loved her interview. I connected with her, and actually through that interview, I ended up finding her on Facebook, and she and I have been chatting. We have so much parallels in common. And Heather Goodwin, or Cullen, however you have her on the interview, she and I are the same age, and we went through the same things. And so she and I have been friends for the past few months, and we have so much in common too. But so, yeah, it's the same thing. It's the yo-yo of stressing and eating and not taking care of yourself and being a people pleaser.
Wow. Yeah. And then, you said your mom had a lot of health issues. You mentioned people around you, at some point you realized kind of just everybody was big. What did that mean for you in terms of, how did you think about the future, both in terms of what you were going to look like and also your health? What was kind of your expectation of that?
So at 46 years old, I'm the oldest female in my family, my circle of family that I spend time with, which is sad. My son is 7 years old. He doesn't have any grandparents, aunts. So, I'm the role model for my son. He's got to be able to see 46 is not the end of life. He's got to see that, I want to be this strong when I'm 50. I want to be this strong when I'm 60. I want to be this strong when I'm 70. And I want him to be able to see that and be a role model for him. But yeah, I hope that me losing this weight and the way that I lost the weight by eating a plant-based diet, I try not to come across being like all judgy about people who eat this. And, my one close, my cousin said to me, she goes, I don't want to be judged if I'm eating a hamburger. And I was like, I'm not going to judge you if you're eating the hamburger, but I just want you to understand why I feel I don't want you to eat that hamburger. So.
And then this time around, did you have kind of a rock bottom moment? Did you have a point at which you said, I got to turn this around?
So the funny thing was, so 4 years ago, I had just completed doing MetaFast, which was a diet plan where you eat everything they make, and you just add water to it. And I had just lost the weight from that, but now I'm thinking. And by the way, when I was doing that MetaFast diet, not to be too much information, but I was only having a bowel movement like every 3 days, and I knew that wasn't right. And you weren't even allowed to eat, onions on the plan. It's like onions of all things. So anyway, I I didn't know how I was going to continue that to keep that weight off after, because they don't teach you that. They just said, oh, if you're starting to gain weight, just eat some more of the Medifast meals. I'm like, okay. So a close relative of mine on my husband's side of the family had lost 85 pounds following Dr. McDougall, and I thought, oh, I want to do this. I think I can do it, because she made me a meal, and I said, if I could eat like this every day, I can do this. So I should have just listened to exactly what she was saying, but she was kind of leaving it open for me to figure it out. And I kept trying to learn about this plant-based diet and how to eat. So I was in this slippery slope of eating a lot of things like nuts, which are good for you, but I was eating a lot of them, and I was eating foods, and I gained my weight back. So the aha moment was I would say the fall of 2015, so a year ago. I turned to my husband and I said, I don't want to be vegan anymore. It's not working for me. I'm not losing the weight. I just can't do it anymore. And my husband looked at me with this, beaming eyes, because he wasn't ready to give up on it. But I was just, I had a moment. I was done. And then all of a sudden, Chef AJ introduced this one program that she was doing, which is 10 of us. There was 10 of us in the program. And I thought, okay, I'll give it another try. And it was then that I was able to move forward, and finally, I needed the one-on-one attention from her and JP.
And I think I saw somewhere that it almost looked like, and I'm not sure where this played in, because obviously you said you had your son's, I think, 7 now, but yeah. I think I saw somewhere in there that a little bit of your reason for getting healthy at some point was the fact that you guys actually did want to have kids, and you felt like that was going to kind of factor into that. Can you kind of talk about why you felt that was important?
So I had 5 miscarriages after I had my son. I had my son at 39. We got pregnant right away. It was an easy pregnancy, great labor. So I got cocky and thought, well, we'll have another. And we kept trying. I had the first miscarriage, like I said, right after my father got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And then after my father had passed away, we tried again 4 more times after that. And I just kept having miscarriages. And I went to the fertility doctor close after the 4th miscarriage, and they did the egg count and said that my egg count was too low. There was nothing they could do. Whatever eggs I had left were old. And so we were trying the plant-based diet at the time, thinking that maybe, it could strengthen the egg, I don't know, once the eggs are old. But yeah, the whole eating healthy was because I wanted to be able, I'm 46, my husband's older than me. We want to be able to live long for my son. We don't want him to not have his parents. But another thing that I also am trying to be a role model for my son is getting into exercising. And that was something I just started this year as well. Even though I was cycling when I first met my husband, that was a short-lived adventure, because once I had my son, I didn't have the time to get on my bike. And I like to ride with my husband, and because when we had our son, someone had to be home with him, so we couldn't ride together. So I just started getting into running this year, and also we have a community-based boot camp that we are in, and it's run by this one guy here in town, and it's just for our community. And so I find that the community has helped me a lot as well to keep on track.
That's awesome. And then I think in your blog you mentioned that at some point in 2014 that, looking back, you actually realized that you were an addict and food was your drug. Can you talk about, kind of your realization with that, and just what that means for you today?
Yeah, so I am a food addict. If I'm sitting at a table and food is in front of me, I'm just going to eat it. I don't care if I'm full and I had a big meal, I'll just keep eating. And that was something we all did as a family. I remember my father getting up from the table saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe I ate that much. I'm so full." But then he'll just keep eating. And so I guess I thought that was normal. But I'm definitely a food addict, and I have to have So we did have our son go trick-or-treating, and he does like his candy. I'm trying to teach him the moderation of candy, which is a joke. I laugh at the word moderation, but that's another topic. But I'm a food addict, so I had to have my husband take that candy and hide it from me, because I work from home. This is This is my office. I work for a company that sets me up at home, and I'm here. This is my environment. And if it's in the house, it's, as Chef AJ says, it's in your house. If it's in your house, it's in your mouth. And so if I'm sitting here working and I start getting, I guess, a little stressed, I'm going to want something to eat. And if it's candy, that's what I'm going to grab first. Even though I have a refrigerator full of carrots and celery and salads. I pre-make salads in a jar. So now, because there's nothing in the house that will trigger me to eat, which is the salt and the sugar and the oil and flour. So breads, I can't keep it in the house because I'll eat it. Pasta, I'll even take the time to cook it and eat it over eating the vegetables, because it's that carby. Like I said, my mom said, eat an apple. I said, no, I want food.
So outside of what you keep in the house, are there any other structures, especially if you guys go out or you go to friends' houses? Are there any things that you kind of put in place to prevent you from going back to that?
So this past year, my husband and I ate out once. It was a vegan restaurant in Philly called Fedge. I called them ahead of time. It is amazing. And I called them ahead of time and asked them about if they can make me anything oil free. And they said, oh, just ask for the oil free menu. And I was like, that's fantastic. They had a great oil free menu. We do have one restaurant that's in town here. We have a cute little downtown area here in Morristown, New Jersey. And there's one restaurant there called Healthy Garden. It's sort of like a New Jersey diner menu of food. So they have everything that's not good for you, but they also have some great things that are good for you. And they have a kale and quinoa salad that I get without the dressing. And then I just put balsamic vinegar on it. But so I know places where we're going to go eat, and I rather just make food. We eat home. And so going to friends' house. So my social life has definitely dwindled this past year. I used to socialize a lot with my girlfriends at their houses. We drank a lot, and there was always a lot of fattening food that we would eat. And so this past year, I declined a lot of those times, and I don't get asked anymore, which I'm okay with. I do have a couple set of friends who support me in this journey, and our one set of friends that we do go to their house. They always make vegan food, and they're great cooks, and they know how to make it, the way that I like to eat, or the way we eat. But as far as the holidays went, we stayed home. I'm still in this journey, and I'll always be in this journey. I just felt this was the first holidays with the weight loss, and I needed to be, I don't think I could have ventured out for the holidays. I needed to be home. And it was fine, and we were fine with it. And my son was a little upset because he wanted to be with his cousins. But, we kept him entertained, and we got through the day, which was great because it wasn't about the food. It was about us spending time together.
And then I know you mentioned boot camp running. Is that kind of look like your active life these days? Do you kind of split it between those things?
So I went from not being able to get out of bed by 8 o'clock in the morning. I now get out of bed at 4 a.m. Sometimes I let myself sleep until 5. But yeah, we have a boot camp in our community. It's called Exit 4 Boot Camp. And I actually have gotten high attendance for the month of June, July, and September. And we have this big Heisman Trophy type of thing, and he puts our name on it. So so I do boot camp, and I was doing double classes at 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. 3 times a week. And the days that I wasn't doing boot camp, I was running. I am running. And I do yoga. I started yoga early on in the year. So I do yoga once a week, boot camp 3 days a week, and I run about 3 days a week. And I try to give myself one rest day. And I was doing boot camp double classes back to back, but Rich, the instructor, our coach, asked me to cut back. He thought I was just too much.
And then as you look forward, any physical or life goals that, you're working on or you're working towards? Right.
So I'm a slow runner. I have this little hashtag I do, slow but go. So right now I finally got myself up to 9 miles. In the past year, I was lucky I was walking 3 miles. Now I'm running 9 miles. I'm slow. I don't know if I really necessarily want to increase my pace. I'm happy with just being able to complete and at the pace I'm at. So my goal is to do a half marathon, which is going to be in May 28th. And I feel confident if I'm doing 9 miles now, I feel like I can do the half marathon in May. But my lifetime goal is to be able to continue on this and not just stop and not go anymore. There was one thing that Rich, the boot camp coach, had said to me. He said, he goes, I get that not everybody can come to the boot camp anymore, but what makes me sad is that they stopped working out altogether. So, I mean, that resonates in my head too.
Well, I have no doubt you'll be on this for a long time.
So.
Do you have any advice that you would give to somebody at the beginning of this journey, who's got one toe in and hasn't quite jumped in as far as taking care of themselves or beginning to eat in a way that is giving life to themselves?
So for me, I had totally grasped eating a plant-based diet, no sugar, oil, salt, flour, and I feel great. Do I know, or do I think this is the way that we should be eating? I kind of think I feel this way, but so my only thing I say to people is you got to find what works for you and your family. I'm going to push eating this way because I really feel like the science is behind it. So you got to find what works for you. And once you find that works for you, you gotta take steps into it. And you can't beat yourself up on the days that you fail, because even when you follow the plan that you've set in place for yourself and you do have those slips, you got to just move forward on the next day and then just walk. If you can get out and walk. I mean, that was one thing I had asked my mom, years before she passed away, is, Mom, can you just go for a walk? And she just laughed. So walk. That's going to make you healthy. And then if you start to walk farther. If you're going to start to run, then run. But it's all gonna take baby steps, and it doesn't happen overnight. And that was the one thing I had to get into myself. It doesn't happen overnight. Yes, it took me this year. It took me 1 year to lose 45 pounds. I didn't have a lot to lose, so 45 pounds for someone who doesn't have a lot to lose is a lot, I feel. But it didn't take me this whole year. It took me the 3 years prior of education, of understanding how I wasn't going to. And then once I educated myself during those 3 years, January of 2015, I said, okay, here we go. We're going to do this. And but there's days I slipped up. I mean, I had some chocolate yesterday. It was in front of me. I had it. So am I going to let that beat myself up today? No, I'm not going to let it beat myself up today. I'm just going to eat some extra vegetables to make myself feel a little bit better. But I just tell the people, please, you got to find what works for you and your family.
And if you could go back in time and give some words of encouragement to the former self, whether that was before 4 years ago or that was even, junior year in high school, what do you think? What words would that person have needed to hear?
Stop pleasing everybody else and take care of yourself. Because if you're not well, then you're just not going to be around to be a people pleaser at all. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. Stop taking care of everybody. Stop worrying about what everybody thinks of you. Do what makes yourself healthy and happy, and everything else will fall into place.
Awesome. Well, and then lastly, where can people find out about you and connect with you?
Okay, so I just started a blog. It's called Veggie Jersey Girl. It's VEGGIE jerseygirl.com. I just started it, so my first blog is only talking about myself because I want people to understand who I was. So I don't know if I can be able to do weekly because of all the exercise. I work full time and I have a son. So I'm going to try to do, at least I'm going to promise myself once a month. I am on Facebook, BJ Swingle. I'm in Chef AJ's Ultimate Weight Loss Program. I'm on her page. I highly recommend her program. It's a great support system.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for the time. And I know you're probably in between exercise classes right now, so I better let you go Full disclosure, this was scheduled around a run. So just to let you guys know that she is the real deal. But I appreciate the time, and hopefully at some race or some event or something, we'll connect in person.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. It was nice talking to you.
Same here. Have a great day.
All right. Bye.